Are you a musician, podcaster, or content creator looking to elevate your audio production? Join us as we explore the top 5 best audio interfaces of 2024. We'll dive into the world of high-quality audio, low-latency recording, and versatile connectivity options. From beginner-friendly interfaces to professional-grade setups, we'll help you find the perfect tool to capture your sound with precision and clarity. Let's unlock your creative potential with the best audio interfaces on the market. Number 5. IK Multimedia AXE-IO. I'm predominantly a guitar player, so you can bet my interest was piqued when I came across the IK Multimedia AXE-IO for testing. It's a pure guitar audio interface, designed for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stringers who want to focus on getting great guitar tones. It's a hefty thing with a rugged design that's reminiscent of other guitar gear like pedals and amps, which means you can use it to lay down ideas or supplement your live show on the road. Features. I'm seeing more and more interfaces featuring JFET inputs, such as the Audient ID4 and the Blackstar Polar 2. The idea is to recreate the type of input you'd get on a guitar amp to help deliver punchier DI guitar tones. It certainly worked in my tests with the AXE-IO, helping me get some sizzling sounding guitars alongside my amp modeling software. JFETs are great for guitars, but it's not exactly a unique feature these days. The input is switchable between pure and JFET, which gives you the option of a pure clean tone, or to utilize that JFET input for extra harmonics. You can also switch between active and passive pickup equipped guitars, which can be super helpful if your guitar collection has both and you don't want to keep resetting your gain level. Finally, there's an impedance knob that goes from sharp to bold, or in simpler terms, bright to warm. Software. Being a guitar-specific audio interface, the AXE-IO comes with Amplitube 5 SE and Tonix SE, so you've got some of the best amp models and captures around for your recordings. I've used Amplitube many times in the past for in-the-box guitars, and it absolutely delivers on accurate amp tones, as well as providing a huge amount of effects to play with. Similarly, I also reviewed the IK Multimedia Tonix 1 and its accompanying software, and honestly, those captures are some of the best sounds I've heard in the past few years. Performance. For those recording guitars only, you'll feel totally at home with the IK Multimedia AXE-IO. I found it super easy to get up and running in my DAW, and I really love the amount of connectivity options you get as well. Alongside the 2 front-mounted instrument inputs, you've got dual microphone inputs on the rear, multiple outs for 2 sets of studio monitors or sending a signal elsewhere, as well as dedicated outs for external pedals or controllers. Admittedly, the built-in guitar tuner feels like a bit of an afterthought and doesn't work as well as it could, but it's useful in a pinch. One of the most undervalued features of the AXE-IO is the dedicated reamping output, which makes this super useful technique for improving your recording guitar tracks nice and simple. The integration with Amplitube also extends to a preset knob which allows you to change your sound without clicking your mouse. Number 4. Universal Audio Apollo Twin X. For me, the Universal Audio Apollo Twin X is the definition of a prosumer audio interface. It's high quality enough for professionals, yet accessible enough for those who demand the best in the home recording space. I've worked with more than a few pro engineers who used one as part of their home or travel rig, as it delivers superb quality recordings, fantastic dynamic range figures, and comes with some of UA's most loved plugins. Features. The Apollo Twin X is a DSP interface, which means it uses its own processing power rather than just that of your computer. That means you can run preamp and outboard gear emulations in real time, giving you the workflow of a traditional analog studio. It comes in duo and quad versions, which give you more or less power depending on what your requirements are. I absolutely loved using the Apollo Twin X during my testing, and I'm currently using a Universal Audio Apollo X4 Gen 2 as the center of my home recording rig. On the face of it, it's not too different from any other desktop-based interface here. However, the clever bit is how the Unison preamps utilize that DSP processing. This means you can load in a vintage Neve channel strip, or whichever flavor of preamp/EQ/compressor takes your fancy, which will modify the behavior of the analog input for some uncanny recreations of proper recording studio channels. Software, being a Thunderbolt interface predominantly, although it is available in a USB 3 version, it's much better suited to Mac users. Those on Windows, especially if you've got an older machine, may find their motherboard isn't compatible, which might mean purchasing a pricey Thunderbolt card in order to use it. If you've got a newer machine, however, you'll be fine. The installation process on Macs is also a bit of a minefield if you're not already part of the UA ecosystem. Be prepared for many restarts, endless accepting of pop-up windows, and delving into the system menus of your MacBook in order to get it up and running. Admittedly, it's totally worth it once you're done, as you get access to incredibly accurate plugins like the legendary LA2A and 1176 compressor plugins, Pultec EQ plugin, and amp modelers in the form of Marshall Plexi for guitars and Ampeg SVT for bass. Performance. The UA Apollo Twin X is one of my all-time favorite audio interfaces to use, precisely because of its analog-style workflow. One of the crucial things that many home producers miss is that you need to start with a great sound before you get a great mix. The Apollo encourages this older art of recording, which inevitably leads to better results in the final mix. Granted, it's not cheap, retailing around the $$/#1000 mark, but ultimately you're paying a premium for more processing power than a cheaper interface is capable of producing. Some will argue DSP power isn't a necessity nowadays thanks to the high-powered Apple Silicon chips that are getting cheaper and cheaper, but for me it's the variety of plugins the UA ecosystem provides, and thus the versatility in recording that make the Apollo Twin X perfect for home producers who want excellent quality sound. Number 3. Behringer Euphoria UMC22. I was so skeptical about the Behringer Euphoria UMC22 when I received it for review. Costing a measly $$/#40, it's the cheapest interface I've ever used by some measure, so surely it couldn't be any good? Well, I'm perfectly happy to admit I was completely wrong about it, and you can absolutely get some fantastic recordings with this uber-cheap interface. Features. Now, this is an interface that costs less than your average synth plugin, so it's not exactly feature-packed, but it does give you all the basics. Phantom power, a single mic preamp, a line-level instrument input, studio monitor outs, and a studio headphone output. It's got a very Spartan appearance compared to others, and one of the things that impressed me is how compact it is. Alongside the ins and outs, you get individual gain knobs for both inputs alongside an output knob that controls both the monitor and headphone volume. You can't separate the two either, so if you want to monitor your low end via headphones, then you'll need to separately mute your speakers to prevent any bleed causing issues in your mixing. A direct monitor button allows you to jump between your DAW mix and input signals. Software is where I found the major flaw with the UMC22. On a Mac, it works great, although I had to separately set the I/O in Pro Tools as it didn't recognize it. On Windows, it's a different story. Presumably to keep costs down, Behringer hasn't bothered creating a dedicated driver, which means you need to go third-party. I chose ASIO for all, but there are others you can use. It means that the low-latency performance of the UMC22 isn't as good as those with dedicated drivers, and depending on your setup, you may only be able to get one sound at a time with the driver engaged. That means no easy switching between what's coming out of your DAW and Spotify if you're looking for inspiration on your latest tune. There's also no software bundle to speak of, so you'll have to buy your own separately or use free plugins. Performance. I used to use a Behringer UMC 1820 for rudimentary drum recordings, and this unit features the same Midas preamps as that. They're not the quietest out there, but if you're just cooking up demos or basic recordings, you're probably not going to notice that. Just make sure you've got your gain staging right and it'll do just as good a job as many other interfaces on this list. There are issues with the UMC22, I won't deny that, and if you're a Windows user you're going to have to do a little extra work to get it going. Once you're up and running, however, it'll deliver good quality audio for an extremely low price. I'd absolutely use one for demo work and songwriting collaboration on a budget, and it's undoubtedly the best budget audio interface available right now. Number 2. Audient ID 4 MKII. One of the best audio interfaces under $200, the Audient ID 4 MKII is my top pick for those who are completely new to recording. It's super easy to use, relatively cheap at around the $210/$120 mark, and yet it uses the same preamps found in Audient's much more expensive studio-grade hardware. I've used Audient hardware in professional studios, so they've got a huge amount of knowledge to draw from when creating their more home recording-specific gear. Features. Probably the most useful feature I found with the Audient ID4 is its ultra-large encoder knob on the front. It does a multitude of different things, from setting the output level, to controlling certain parameters within your DAW. A press-down allows you to dim the headphones and main outputs, which can be useful if you need to talk to a collaborator in the studio. It can also be used to set the left/right balance of the input monitoring when you press the speaker and ID buttons together. I also love the dual headphone outputs, which can be used simultaneously for collaborative recording and mixing sessions. It's a small touch, but you'll find most interfaces at this cost only have a single headphone out. Because it is USB bus powered, you'll need a USB 3.0 port to get the best out of it. It makes the ID4 great for a travel rig, but will limit its compatibility with certain machines depending on how old they are. Software. In keeping with its beginner-friendly ethos, I found the Audient ID4 to be simple to install, with a very good driver for Windows users. It also features one of the most complete software offerings of any of the interfaces here, with Cubase LE3, SonarWorks, Strymon Big Sky Reverb plugin, 2 Notes Torpedo Wall of Sound speaker emulator, and even 3 free online courses from Produce Like a Pro. Again, this is why I would heartily recommend it for those who are taking their first steps into music production. Performance. I'm primarily a guitarist, so of course I love the JFET instrument input for plugging in an electric guitar or bass, which delivers similar characteristics to the input of a tube amp. It provides an excellent bass tone for using guitar VSTs, and the mic preamp is super transparent with a healthy 58 dB of gain. This means there's plenty of gain for quieter dynamic microphones whether you're recording vocals or other traditional instruments. The ID4 MKII delivers a solid update to its predecessor, making improvements in all the right places. It's still pretty basic as far as the feature set goes, particularly compared to products like our best overall pick, the Scarlett 2i2 4th Gen, but as it's intended for beginners, I think this is actually a strength, as you can get to recording in a simple, easy way with a minimum of fuss. Number 1. Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 4th Gen. Focusrite's ubiquitous red box is probably the most popular audio interface ever made, and it certainly captured my attention when the Gen 1 landed back in 2011. I used it to record a bunch of bands at university, and as a testament to its excellent durability, it still works today. We're on Gen 4 now, and the Scarlett 2i2 has come a long way since that first iteration, with improved preamps, excellent low latency performance, and an ultra-low noise floor. Features. One of the things that impressed me the most about the 2i2 4th Gen when I tested it was the huge number of features. As well as your more run-of-the-mill stuff like phantom power and a combination of line and mic inputs, it now comes with 3 flavors of preamp mode. The first is a basic, super clean, and detailed sound from the preamps. With a push of the Air button, you can add a presence boost to your signals, increasing the high end. A second press gives you a mid-range harmonic boost, which is useful for adding a little more punch to things that need to stand out in the mix. Auto gain mode allows you to train your interface on your particular input by playing/singing/drumming for a few moments while it detects the signal level. The interface will then automatically set your input gain to the sweet spot for recording, usually around -6 dBFS. You also get a clip-safe mode, which is useful for very loud sources like acoustic drums. It stops your input levels from getting overloaded, which can potentially ruin a take, and will be super helpful for beginners who aren't as experienced in setting their input gain. Software. Scarlett's drivers on Windows deliver phenomenal low latency performance that's only really limited by your computer or laptop specs. I found on my relatively old Windows PC I could set my buffer settings super low, and nail rhythmic parts without having to account for any delay or edit takes in post. On Mac you can go a step further and utilize something called codeless kernel extension. This allows you to drop your latency to below the 5 milliseconds mark, which is a frankly incredible number considering the cost. The Scarlett 2i2 comes with a dedicated Focusrite control app that enables totally hands-free use, which I personally found super useful. If you've got a more permanent setup, then you'll love being able to select your channels and set gain levels with a few clicks of the mouse, and it also automatically installs any firmware updates for your interface. The Scarlett 2i2 4th Gen comes with one of the better software packages of the interfaces in this guide, including Ableton Live Lite, a 3-month Pro Tools Artist subscription, and a 6-month FL Studio Producer Edition, which should cover the vast majority of DAW needs. It also comes with the Hitmaker expansion, which contains synths, amp modelers, VST drums, and a selection of EQs and compressors. One thing it does lack is any effects like reverb or delay plugins, so you'll need to use those that come as stock in your DAW. Performance. I found the Scarlett 2i2 4th Gen to be super easy to set up, and I really enjoyed those extra little features that make recording life a little easier. The sound of the preamps is as clean and clear as you could hope for at around the $/200 mark, so as long as you're feeding it a quality signal from your instrument or microphone, you won't be shy of recording quality. Ultimately, there's a reason that so many home producers are using a Scarlett, and if everyone is using one, well, you probably should too. Whether you're an absolute beginner making your very first recordings, or you're a more established producer looking for something to mix on the go, I couldn't recommend the 4th Gen Scarletts enough. You will find all the links of these products in the description below. Comment below and tell us which audio interface you were considering. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit the like button and share with your friends, and if you are new to the channel, then subscribe and hit the bell icon for future updates.